Led Zeppelin. Some might say they're emotionally adolescent, that they're totally bombastic and lacking in subtlety, that they ripped off everything from stuff that non white people did decades earlier. But you know what? You could make every single one of those points about Star Wars. And it misses the point with both Star Wars and Led Zeppelin. Both of them were immediately fresh and potent when they came out, very inspiring, and neither of them have really been equaled. They both totally kick ass. So Led Zeppelin is going to be Robert Plant on vocals, Jimmy Page on guitars and doing all the production work, John Paul Jones on bass and keyboards and string arrangements, and John Bonham on the drums. So let's start with the first album. So first album is 1968. Jimmy Page starts Led Zeppelin as a successor to the Yardbirds, which is a mid-60s sort of blues psychedelic British group, which is kind of a transition from early British invasion to the sort of late 60s blues rock, hard rock type music. And they immediately come out the gate in 1968 with this album, Led Zeppelin 1, which was recorded, I think, in like a couple of days, basically live in the studio. And their sound has already coalesced. Robert's a great singer. Jimmy's an excellent guitarist from his session days. And so is John Paul Jones on bass. And most interestingly, on the first song, Good Times, Bad Times, Bonham lets it rip with this incredible drum part, with this triplet kick part. So this song is a almost like goofy in how sort of simplistic it is in the lyrics, but it's pulled off so perfectly, and that drum part means it's going to be A tier minimum. They follow that up with something totally different but equally awesome, Baby I'm Gonna Leave You, which was a Joan Baez folk tune, which they is filtered through Robert Plant's wailing and transition from an uh, acoustic verse and an electric chorus, really hard rocking. And you're seeing they're taking outside influences and making them something new. It's going to be another A tier. You Shook Me is different from either of those. It's I think a Willie Dixon, a Chicago blues cover. Um, Great organ from John Paul Jones, good vocal from Robert. I don't like it quite as much. This is bad, but that's like relative Led Zeppelin. We're gonna give this a low B, high C, but almost everything on here is very good. Dazed and Confused is, I believe, a song that they stole from some dude from who was just like a coffee house performer in San Francisco. So a common thread is going to be they're ripping off music from people you've never heard of or don't listen to, but adding so much value that you can only think of it as a Led Zeppelin song. So Dazed and Confused has this awesome descending bass line. It has excellent triplet drum part from drum fill section from Bonham. It's got Page playing the guitar with a violin bow. This is perfect. We love it. Mm. Your Time Is Gonna Come sort of sounds like Sweet Home Alabama a little bit. It's just sort of a generic bluesy country kind of rocker. This is a high C, low B. I think I put above You Shook Me. Black Mountain Side. Now this is interesting. This is an acoustic piece by Jimmy Page. Now the original piece is based off of I believe a Celtic folk song called Black Water Side, which was done really well by Pentangle guitarist Bert Jansch. And there he played guitar and sang the Celtic part. But Celtic music, very pentatonic. In some ways, it can sound like a little bit like Indian music at times. And Led Zeppelin made this arrangement more Indian sounding by taking sort of the Bert Jansch Pentangle sort of guitar arrangement, which basically ripped off, but then they added a tabla, an Indian tabla on the bottom, and maybe a tanpura also, adding a drone. This is a very high B tier song, and Jimmy would play this live. I think Burt Jansch probably didn't like that he was being ripped off. Communication breakdown. It's always the same. Hard rock pop masterpiece. This is S. I Can't Quit You Baby is it's like a slow 6/8 blues song. It's not very fun. And How Many More Times? This is like a medley of a couple of different songs. Some of them are the sort of the Chicago blues sorts of covers they would do. I think there's one like The Hunter, I think is one of them. I don't know who that's by. And then there's also a piece called Beck's Bolero that was done by a super group before Led Zeppelin. It was, I think, Keith Moon, Jimmy Page, probably was it John Entwistle, and then Jeff Beck. And Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page fought over who should get the writing credit for it, and I think Jimmy Page ended up getting the credit. So just to sort of like troll him, Jimmy Page put like basically Beck's Bolero, this song from 1966 from this early super group that was sort of the proto Led Zeppelin. He put it in the middle of this song. So great troll move, awesome song, more violin, bow, guitar, S tier. All right. So Led Zeppelin 1, awesome album. You can see plenty of S tier, plenty A tier. So Led Zeppelin is immediately extremely successful, both in their live tours and in the album. The next album, they have to record really quickly on the road. And a lot of the parts are sort of improvised, and it's again done very live in the studio. But that's fine because it's continues to be awesome. So Whole Lot of Love is even better than Dazed and Confused. It has all of the sexual energy that Robert Plant ever mustered into a song. It has great drum work by John Bonham, who never plays a straight back 2/4 backbeat in the song. And sort of coolest of all, we've got this production from Jimmy Page with like all kinds of sound effects that really it's reminiscent of A Day in the Life by the Beatles, but it's a better song than A Day in the Life by the Beatles somehow, as tall of an order as that is. What Is and What Should Never Be is a song that Robert Plant wrote about an affair he was having with his wife's sister. And it's another sonic masterpiece. We'll put it between Communication Breakdown and How Many More Times. The Lemon Song is just the greatest of their sort of straight blues workout songs. I believe it's based on Killing Floor by Willie Dixon. And later this would go on to inspire Jack White of the White Stripes. I think the song Ball and Biscuit off of Elephant is very much inspired by this. Put this at the bottom of the S tier. If you ever want to learn how to play bass, that's a fun thing to play along to. Thank You was not ripped off of anyone, but it's also not very good. So I'm going to put that in the C. Heartbreaker, this song inspired Eddie Van Halen to take up two-handed tapping because of the guitar solo. And I think a lot of people love the riff, but I don't. I'm going to put this at the bottom of the B tier. It's paired with Living, Loving, Made. Like one stops and it immediately flows into the other one. So I like Living, Loving, Made maybe a little bit more, but they're basically one song. Moby Dick is an awesome riff with a long guitar solo. So I think I'll put that above I Can't Quit You Baby and Thank You, but it's still not a favorite. Bring It On Home is another one of these old sort of Chicago blues sort of ripoff pieces. It begins and ends with like a parody of like a poor recording quality old blues song, but then it fortunately goes into an awesome riff. So this is either the very top of B or the very bottom of A. I think I'll put it at the bottom of A. And Ramble On. Ramble On is a lot like What Is and What Should Never Be. It's got some good dynamics. Awesome bass on that second album altogether. I think I'll put it above Good Times, Bad Times. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So first two albums, we're doing really good. Third album, they needed a little bit of a break. They go to a cottage, and I don't know if it was in Scotland or Wales or something. and they start writing some songs with acoustic guitar. We saw sort of with Ramble On and with um, Black Waterside, especially, that Jimmy Page really has one foot in the British folk revival world with like Pentangle and Fairport Convention, Bert Ganch, those kinds of people. And this album really plays that up. It really plays that up. Um, I don't see, yeah, Immigrant Song. So, but the first song is like a pretty straight metal song, Immigrant Song, which very famous. It was in the Thor movie. Not my favorite. It's just somehow doesn't, the double track Plant vocals somehow don't have the same, like Plant pretending to be an invading Viking isn't as good as Plant pretending to be, not Plant sincerely being a horny teenager. We like our Plant horny. We don't really care about him pretending to be murderous as much. Friends is another one of these songs like Black Waterside that is some kind of barrier between, some kind of boundary between British folk revival and like a wanting to evince some kind of Indian influence. It's got like a lot. It's got a very like raga feel to it. Some nice droning in it. I used to love this. I think I'll put it above Black Mountainside. This is almost an A level song. Celebration Day is a hard rock song that's just not, that doesn't do anything for me. Uh, Plant isn't at his best. The riff isn't that great. Okay, Since I've Been Loving You is one of their best sort of 6/8 hard blues numbers. Awesome, awesome work by Plant, one of Plant's all-time best. But yeah, so far you're seeing this album's a little bit weaker than the first two. Out of the Tiles is better than Celebration Day, but it's like it's not it's not up to the level of the hard rock on the first two albums. Tangerine. This is a pretty convincing sort of one of their half acoustic, half electric songs. It's melancholy piece of country rock. It's good. We'll put it at the very bottom of A. Okay, That's the Way is a really interesting song. So the song American Woman by the Guess Who was the Guess Who's reaction to idealizing American music and then coming to the US and finding like, no, there are huge social problems here, and this society has a lot of stuff I don't like about it. And their response to that was rage. Led Zeppelin's response to touring in the US and seeing this was more sadness, I'd say. So this has like um this is just a pure acoustic number without any drums in it. And yet it's one of their best songs. It's really, really strong piece of songwriting. Bronnier ER Stomp is a fun country song. Put it near the at the top of B. Hats Off to Roy Harper is like total novelty, where it's like the beginning of Bring It On Home. They were doing that like fake old timey recording, but they did it for the whole song. So it's just pure joke. We're gonna put that in terrible. That song is legitimately not good at all. It's the first song we've seen so far that's not good. And then Gallows Pole is a folk cover. Many people have done versions of Gallows Pole. The Led Zeppelin one really is really great. It's again, it's one of these good combo like acoustic and electric, good dynamic contrast songs. We'll put it we'll put it a little above Tangerine, below Bring It On Home. Okay. So they've had three massively successful albums in a row. They expand a little bit on the third one with a little more acoustic sound. For the fourth album, they go to a mansion and record in the mansion. I don't know. I think Jimmy Page it might have been Jimmy Page's place, or maybe he bought it later. But they did that thing that bands do once they get a little bit of success, and they recorded in a creepy old mansion. And the Led Zeppelin 4 is commonly regarded by a lot of people as the best Led Zeppelin album. It had the probably the most care put into the production. but it's also a little less live and spontaneous sounding than that. So there are also some people like me who don't like it quite as much. And a really good example of that is the first song, Black Dog, which a lot of people love. It's got a great riff, but it doesn't, it feels a little too clean somehow. So I'm going to put that at the bottom of good, above Out of the Tiles, but below Heartbreaker, Live and Love and Made. The next song is Rock and Roll, which which takes like a sort of Little Richard drum beat. I think the song was called Keep a Knockin'. And great performance by Plant. This one's better. We'll put it at the bottom of A. Third song is Battle of Evermore, which has I was talking about Led Zeppelin's connection to the British folk revival scene, and this has Sandy Denny from Fairport Convention singing about hobbits with Robert Plant, while Jimmy Page or John Paul Jones, whoever, is playing mandolin. That might sound embarrassing, but actually it's awesome and we all love it. It's below Ramble On, above Good Times, Bad Times, we're gonna say. Next song is Stairway to Heaven, which you all already know everything about. You have your opinion on it. I have mine. My opinion is it's pretty good. We'll put it near the bottom of the A tier, above Gallows Pole, below Bring It On Home. The thing about Stairway to Heaven is that it's impeccably produced, but I don't really like my Led Zeppelin impeccably produced. I like them raw, spontaneous. I like horny Robert Plant. I forget which song comes next. It's either Misty Mountain Hop or Four Sticks, but those are both pretty good. Misty Mountain Hop's better than Four Sticks. Four Sticks is just allowed. So Four Sticks is the beginning of some of these like mid-period Led Zeppelin songs that are just decent hard rock numbers, but which I can't really say much about because there's not really a whole lot to say about them. Going to California is another good folk ballad. We'll put it around around Stairway to Heaven, somewhere near it. When the Levee Breaks is probably the most sampled Led Zeppelin song. It has an incredible drum beat with just a little bit of space, and it was recorded in this big hallway of this huge mansion, so it has this big echoey boom, and I think they also put an echo effect. A lot of people consider this the best Led Zeppelin song, and if you were to judge it by the instrumental performances, I get that. I just don't think I don't like Plant as much on this. So Plant honestly is my guy for Led Zeppelin. It's Plant and then Bonham in that order. And this is maybe Bonham's best song, but it's not anywhere near Plant's. So I'm going to put below Ramble On, above Battle of Evermore. All right, so that was 1971, 4 albums in a row, lots of commercial success. They're still getting hated on by critics for some reason. Who knows why? Not me. And that's when they record Houses of the Holy in 1973. Also, sort of in improvised circumstances, they use the Rolling Stones' remote recording facility. And here, the whole album sounds like they're trying to make prog rock, like they're trying to record a Yes album. The first song, The Song Remains the Same, is like a really good prog song. Yeah, it's better than anything that most prog bands were doing at that time. Most of the major prog bands. I'll put it at the top of the B tier. Maybe go A. Over the Hills and Far Away, also very proggy song. Is it Over the Hills and Far Away or the Rain song next? I'm not sure, but whichever. Over the Hills and Far Away, great song. Good, one of those good acoustic electric combos. I think I'll put it around, it's about When the Levee Breaks sort of quality. As is the Rain song. The Rain song is a beautiful ballad that Jimmy Page wrote because George Harrison told him he had to write more ballads. So he wrote a ballad, and John Paul Jones made a a really nice string arrangement, which he then played on a mellotron, which mellotron is a kind of early synthesizer that like where each key is basically tied to a tape that then plays. Something like that. I don't know the mechanics of it, but great song. Yeah, that's it's very proggy. I think this, yeah, it's not as good as Ramble On, but better than When the Levee Breaks. Also notice I didn't put any Led Zeppelin 4 songs in the S tier. That's a very hot take, by the way. Okay, so then I don't remember the exact order of the next ones, but it's something like The Crunge, Jamaica, and Dancing Days. So Jamaica, as the name suggests, is like a reggae pastiche, and it's pretty good. We can put it around Song Remains the Same level. The Crunge um, is an attempt at James Brown, and like Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones get it. John Bonham is going a little too hard, but Robert Plant sort of ruins it. So they like, if they just spent more time on this, they could have pulled it off maybe, but they just farted it out. So it's not very good. We'll put that in the very, now we'll put that in terrible. Um, Dancing Days is like a nasty modal sounding piece that I just don't like very much. And I'll put it at the bottom of C. Okay, but then they end the album extremely strong. No Quarter is another prog song. It's even better than the Rain song. And it's again, it's about Vikings. And it's a very restrained performance by Robert Plant, but Jimmy's great on the guitars, and the real star of this is John Paul Jones on the keyboards. This is like the thing to compare it to would be South Side of the Sky by Yes. It's as good of a song as South Side of the Sky by Yes, and it's one of the better Led Zeppelin songs. This is an S tier. We'll put it below What Is and What Should Never Be, but above How Many More Times. And then The Ocean is excellent. The Ocean is just a straight rock song, although it's not really straight because the main riff is like in a bar of 4/4 followed by a bar of 7/8, and then at the end it goes into this like orgasm coda in 6/8, which just rules. This is going very close to the top. This is either number 2 or 3. So some bad songs on that album, but some really high highs. All right, 1975 comes around, and more Led Zeppelin stuff starts to sound like Four Sticks to me. It kicks ass, it's good, it's well performed, but it just doesn't have the kind of immediacy of the earlier works. It doesn't have the spark. It's all well performed, but it just doesn't, it stops doing it for me as much at this point. So what do we have? We have Custard Pie. This song is pretty good. But it's like, say, lower B tier. I think the next song is The Rover, which I know a lot of people like too, but again, that's just going to be like low B tier for me. The third song is In My Time of Dying, which is a 12-minute slide guitar blues rock jam. This is like very top of B, maybe very bottom of A. It's awesome. It's just too long. So, I'm gonna put it in A. It's good. It's very good. Then I forget the exact order. I think next we have Houses of the Holy, which was an outtake from Houses of the Holy, and to me, it sounds like an outtake from Houses of the Holy because I don't like it very much. I'm gonna put it in C. Trampled Underfoot. I don't know if this song came out before or after Doobie Brothers' Long Train Runnin', but it's basically that song. It's pretty good. It's like a funk sort of disco-y hard rock piece. Could be good. Too long. Goes in the B tier below Bronny or Stomp Above Friends. All right, then Kashmir. Everyone wants me to put Kashmir in S tier. I can't quite do it. I don't think this is at the level of the Rain song. This is like when the levee breaks. It's very loud and powerful and repetitive, and I can understand someone loving it, but just ain't for me. I don't even okay, then we get to the other disc. So that's disc one of two of Physical Graffiti, which is a double album. Second disc, um, I don't even remember the order most of these come in because a lot of them are sort of interchangeable in my mind, unfortunately. So I'll talk about the best of them first. In the Light is another prog epic with a ton of great John Paul Jones value add with lyrics that are like about Christian salvation. Uh, you wouldn't think this would work, but it really does. This is maybe low S tier, maybe high A tier, but it's very good. Then what else do we have? Down by the Seaside is something that sounds like metal era Pink Floyd or maybe Neil Young from this time. Very good song. We'll put it near the top of the B tier. Some good slide guitar. Uh where's I put 10 years gone? This person forget 10? Yeah, here we go. 10 years gone sounds like the soundtrack to Sonic the Hedgehog. Excellent guitar parts from Jimmy. I believe this was actually an instrumental that just Plant sort of randomly added lyrics to toward the end. And it sort of sounds like that. This is all about the guitar. So we'll put it where we put all the songs that are great, but sort of lack total band working together cohesion. By Kashmir and when the levee breaks. Below those. All right. Night Flight is uh is an okay song. I say it's better than Custard Pie. Okay, then we get a bunch of songs that are just I never listened to ever. Bron is like a little folk acoustic piece by Jimmy. Totally forgettable. Um I forget the Wanton song and Sick Again. I get confused. Uh they both have good riffs, but are very muddy sounding. So I put them in with the Rover. Boogie with Stu is with that I think it's Ian Stewart from the Rolling Stones, who was one of the founding members who later quit to become their roadie. Um, it's not very good. We're gonna put that in terrible. Black Country Woman is okay. It's a fun piece. We'll put that by Black Dog. Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of degeneration that's starting to happen. We had way too much in the B tier and only one in the S tier, which isn't good considering that was a double album. So the band still can create great songs, but some kind of spark is being lost here. So the next album was recorded in '76, and I think Plant was in a car accident, so he sang this from a wheelchair. And Jimmy Page was, I think, at this time doing a lot of heroin, but he worked his ass off to get this album done in like 3 weeks. So they recorded this album in 3 weeks, and I think there's no keyboard on it. So it's just Page playing guitar, John Paul Jones on bass, Bonham on drums, and Plant singing and playing some mean harmonica in a few pieces. But I believe it's the only Led Zeppelin album without any kind of keyboard, which is like a big part of their success on the other albums. As I'm talking about, is they're incorporating prog influences, folk influences, trying to do some kind of Indian stuff here and there, in addition to the base of the blues rock. So this album is basically straight blues rock. Um, with some other like minor variations, but the stuff on it's pretty good. So Achilles' Last Stand is a 10-minute epic with it's quite good. I'd say it's like worse than Since I've Been Loving You, but better than Ramble On. Um the version live in 1979 at I think it's called Nebworth, worth checking out on YouTube. Second song I believe is For Your Life, which is a hard rocker, which I like better than these hard rockers on physical graffiti. It's a little more clearly recorded. It's got a little more immediacy. I think I'll put it at the top of the B tier. Third song is Nobody's Fault But Mine, which if you like obnoxious harmonica, you'll love it. I do love obnoxious harmonica. This is for me. We'll put this in the middle of A tier. I don't remember the order of the other ones, which, again, always a bad sign when you don't remember the order. It means you're not playing these songs very much. Um, Hot's On for Nowhere is, I think, pretty fun. It's got a good guitar riff. Um, Good work from Page all the way around. About as good as For Your Life. T for One is another long, I think 6/8 blues piece. It's not, but it's just not as good as Since I've Been Loving You. The band just is sort of repeating itself a little bit here. So it's a really good song. I think I'm going to put it at the bottom of the eighth here. Then Royal Orleans and Candy Store Rock. Royal Orleans is terrible. Candy Store Rock also terrible. Um, yeah. So, all right. That album was, I think, the first Led Zeppelin album that was kind of considered a disappointment. Um, and then after that happened, Robert Plant's son died, and I think they went on hiatus for a few years. And when they came back, Robert Plant was pretty checked out. Jimmy Page was pretty checked out. So it became like an album where John Paul Jones kind of made a quasi new wavy sort of disco album in the late 70s in 1979 with his keyboards, and it it wasn't good. I can't even talk about most of these songs because I don't really listen to them enough to know what they sound like. The most famous one is probably Fool in the Rain. Fool in the Rain has the Purdy shuffle sort of drum beat in it. It's really famous for that drum groove. But um I don't know. If you want to hear great Bernard Purdy drum playing from the late 70s, listen to Asia by Steely Dan. Don't listen to Fool in the Rain. I mean, it's a fine song, but just listen to Steely Dan instead, for God's sakes. We'll put this in the B tier. All My Love was a song that Robert Plant wrote for his son. Um, but it just doesn't, something feels weird about it with the synthesizers. It just sounds sort of dated. And I think Jimmy Page really didn't like this song, but it's not bad. We'll put it sort of somewhere in the middle of the B tier. Um, I'm Gonna Crawl is like a really good sort of. It's one of these blues songs from before, like I Can't Quit You, Baby, or T for One, but now it has these synth strings in the background. And it's actually like a really interesting sort of genre mix. It's probably the best song on the album. So we'll put that, I'm going to put that above Stairway to Heaven. Screw it. And then Carousel Alhambra is another attempt at doing like a prog song. But you know how they did all those good prog songs on Houses of the Holy? This one, not as good. Uh, it's sort of amusing, but yep. And then I don't really know these other songs. Coda was so John Bonham died in 1980. The band disbanded, and they had to release some outtakes because they were contractually obliged. So the album Coda came out in 1982 with those outtakes. But I don't really care about ranking those, and I don't really care about these other songs on In Through the Outdoor. So, yep, that's your final outcome. I've gotten the S tier. I've got Whole Lot of Love, Dazed and Confused, The Ocean, Communication Breakdown, That's the Way, What Is and What Should Never Be, No Quarter, How Many More Times, The Lemon Song, and In the Light. Thank you all very much. This has been Led Zeppelin.